Craig, as I mentioned earlier, is the CEO of Sales Nexus. I've actually been working with Craig for a number of years. I started out as a customer of his solution, and then have formed a relationship with him, and he's one of our strategic partners. Highly recommend the services that his company offers, and looking forward to hearing what he has to present here today. Craig, it's all yours.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks to everybody for joining us today. I'll say right up front that this is the first time that I've presented this particular topic, and so I hope that you enjoy it, and I welcome your feedback. So definitely, if you have the time to shoot me an email or something after the webinar today and let me know what your thoughts were, any constructive criticism or whatever, I'd love to hear that. What we're going to talk about today is how to connect with customers. I titled the topic, or I'm sorry, the webinar, Love to Sell, and that has a little bit of a double meaning. In other words, love to sell meaning love your job as a salesperson, but using the concept of caring for others, loving them, in order to be successful at connecting with customers and ultimately selling. So let's get right into it. What I hear from customers all the time is that they're under a tremendous amount of pressure. Salespeople in general, sales executives, even business owners. When we think about the process of generating new business for your company, it's always somewhat of a balancing act. You're constantly trying to balance between focusing on key customers. So that might be, if you do a lot of repeat business, you may have a small handful of key customers that generate the bulk of your revenue every year. And you need to develop and maintain those relationships. And as we all know, that's very time consuming. But then you have to balance that with filling your pipeline with new potential customers, right? And that's where there's a lot of time and effort is focused from a sales management point of view, teaching salespeople to maintain their focus on filling their pipeline, doing whatever it is you do to connect with new potential customers, whether that's cold calling or networking or getting referrals or whatever. There is a lot of, you can just go out there and search for things like sales training, and you'll find that that's where most of it is focused. And that's because what most people like to do is spend time with their great customers, right? Filling the pipeline is usually less fun, but it's crucial. And we'll take it as a given that we all know that. But it's very stressful to try and balance those two things. It can feel very much like an uphill struggle. That plus the fact that you're trying to hit your numbers, right? The business is counting on you to contribute revenue. You're counting on contributing that revenue to earn the income that you're hoping for, looking forward to. And a lot of other things depend upon that, your family, your financial security, etc. And as we all know, there are times, sometimes when we're unsuccessful at maintaining that balancing act, and sometimes for other reasons, that it feels like we're just hanging on, barely able to even stay where we are, much less make progress moving forward and improving revenues. And that's all just at work, right? You're struggling to make your cold calls, go to the networking events, and oh, by the way, I've got 20 calls to return from key customers and proposals to do and presentations to prepare for and so on and so forth. It can be very overwhelming. Then you add to that there's demands at home, and sometimes it feels like you're literally sliding off the edge of a cliff. Unfortunately, that is the world that most salespeople live in. If you don't live there today, then good for you. You what you need to know is you should be very grateful, because that's not normal, really, in the sales world. In many ways, what I've learned in my career in sales is that one of the key elements of a really good salesperson is they've got to be really tough because of all this pressure. The weight of their entire company sometimes rests on their shoulders, and the success or failure of their sales efforts. That's a lot of pressure to deal with. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. How can we lighten that load? How can we not feel that pressure and be successful in our jobs? How can we have peace of mind? So before I get into the answers to that question, what I want to do is take your temperature. I can just kind of see where all of you guys are coming from in terms of your approach to selling. So I have a little poll that I'm going to launch right now. And let's see. Yeah, okay. So now you should see a place where you can take a poll here. What I want to know is how much of your time in a meeting with a customer, whether it be on the phone or in a face-to-face meeting, how much of the time that you spend with the customer is spent with you talking versus them talking. And I'll give that a minute or so here for you guys to fill that in, and then I'll let you know what the results are. Okay, so we're at 75% of you guys have voted. That's awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to wait another few seconds and I'll close it. And now you should see the results. Hopefully that's the case. What I'm seeing is that a lot of you are somewhere right around the 50% range, either 40 to 60 or 20 to 40% of the time is you talking versus the customer. And so that's pretty good. In my early sales career, when I first had the opportunity to get involved in some formal sales training, I was taught that you wanted to maintain sort of a 70-30 balance, where the customer's doing the talking 70% of the time and you're doing the talking about 30% of the time. This was kind of a consultative selling model, and so the idea was to be asking questions and have the customer answering your questions. And I think that makes sense. And it seems from your answers that a lot of you are in that same zone, so that's great. There's a decent number that based on the poll results are saying that they're doing almost close to 2/3 or 3/4 of the talking in a sales call or sales meeting. So I think this will be definitely very eye-opening for you folks. But either way, what I'm hoping to show you today is how you can take that typical consultative selling approach and take it to the next level by adding a few relatively simple elements to your behavior in a meeting, and really change things fundamentally. So let's get into it here. The question is, are you coming off, are you appearing to your prospect or customer as being aggressive or caring? And when you're doing outbound prospecting, boy, that's really tough, right? You're cold calling, for instance. It's hard not to seem aggressive when you're cold calling, right? Especially if you're really good at it. In my career, doing cold calling and teaching other people to sell via cold calling, you've got to be really focused. You have to have your message very honed. You've got to be effective at delivering it, at getting past gatekeepers and getting the prospect hooked, getting their attention. All of that kind of leads to a pretty aggressive posture, where you're sort of assaulting your prospect with a call out of nowhere and trying to sort of steal a little bit of the time in their day. That may not be what's in your heart when you're doing it. I'm sure that most of us believe that we're trying to help our customers. Our products and solutions that we're offering are going to be of benefit to them. But that doesn't change the fact that the way the customer perceives it is that you're being pretty aggressive. And you're probably not really something they woke up this morning hoping for, right? So how can we change that? How can we do our jobs but have our customers really feel that we care for them, that we actually have their best interests in mind? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But first of all, why is it that way? Why does it have to be that way? Fundamentally, most of us got into sales because we like people. We're people, right? So what in my experience happens is that we get taught that sales is a numbers game, right? We've all heard that, and it's true. But unfortunately, the techniques and tactics that we learn, whether it be in formal sales training or just by learning the hard way, or from the top producer down the hall, whatever, are to treat customers like a number, basically. And I think that's kind of where things start to go wrong. I talked a little bit about consultative selling a minute ago. Just for those of you who may not know that term or may not have had any specific training in that area, basically what it's about is, like I mentioned earlier, asking questions, and I'm going to turn off that poll. I'm not sure if you guys have been seeing that the whole time or not, but you're asking questions of the prospect, and you're listening to what their answers are, and you're trying to identify pain. What's the problem in the customer's world that your solution can address for them, right? And I have SalesScripter logo up here because if that's something that you practice today, then you should definitely check out SalesScripter. That's Michael, who introduced the webinar today, is the founder of SalesScripter, and that's exactly what it will do, is help you identify what the pains are that your product and service address so that you can ask the right questions. So it's a really powerful tool. It does a lot of other things, but I won't get into all that today. I highly recommend you check out salesscripter.com. The idea of all this pain stuff, of questioning for pain, is that we want to be able to say, well, since you've told me that you have this problem, then I think my solution will fix your problem because blah, 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 right? So we're letting the customer first identify the problem themselves so that we can then come to their rescue with our product or service, right? That's a very effective sales technique. And that's why the old 70-30 balance of listening versus talking is so important. Because if you're asking a lot of questions, you won't be doing most of the talking, and asking those questions is what leads to identifying the pain and being able to position your product in that way. If you want to learn more about consultative selling, and I highly recommend that you do, a couple of books that I wanted to recommend to you. The first place I was ever exposed to the idea was David Sandler, the founder of Sandler Sales Training, one of the biggest training organizations in the world, wrote, "You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar." And that's a great book. Brian Tracy's Psychology of Selling, that's a great one. And then also our own Michael Halper wrote The Cold Calling Equation, Problem Solved. It is about cold calling, but it's not just about that. In the book, Michael really breaks down identifying pain, establishing value, overcoming objections, a lot of techniques that are essential in all kinds of selling. So those are some ways to get up to speed on what consultative selling is if you're interested in that. So to put a little finer point on the direction that I'm taking us here today, consultative selling and identifying pain is analogous with old school advertising back in the 20s, and this is still very common today. Are you suffering from this ailment, whatever it is? Psoriasis is what I put in here. Then brand X will make your troubles disappear. That's essentially what we're doing with consultative selling. Let me find your problem, and then let me put the Band-Aid on it. Here you see a little ad that I was able to find from an old school magazine or newspaper. What we're doing with these types of appeals is we're appealing to people's problems, their needs and wants. It's not the most highbrow way to sell a product. Let's just put it that way. Here in the last couple of decades, some companies have done very well by taking a much higher road. The most prominent example that we all know of is Apple. Their marketing is so successful because it appeals to the best within us, our unrealized potential. Their ads are always about unleashing your potential, about freeing you to be creative and things that we all dream of and strive for. So they're not talking about, you have a problem, let me fix it. It's more, you can be whatever you want to be, and we just want to be there with you. That's a very different way to market a product, and that's what I want to talk about today. How can you, as a salesperson, communicate with your customers and connect with them on that same level? A couple other examples I put down here at the bottom. Nike does a very good job of this kind of marketing. Patagonia, the outdoor clothing and equipment company, does a really good job. And there's plenty of other examples. In fact, great book if you want to read more about this kind of marketing is Winning the Story Wars. It's really great. I can't recommend it more highly. If you're in any way, shape, or form associated with marketing strategy with your company, then you definitely want to read that book. So there's a famous philosopher, Abraham Maslow, that was came to prominence kind of in the middle part of the 19th or the 20th century. He's the guy that came up with the saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. A lot of you have probably heard that. What he was known for is really developing the psychology of self-actualization, the study of human potential and humans reaching their full potential. In fact, one of his main focuses in his research was Einstein. He used Einstein as really, sort of his example of somebody who really reached their full potential. And at the time when he came to prominence, he was in great contrast to what was really the common way of thinking about psychology, which was really fundamentally the Freudian type of thinking, which is the study of human problems and limitations and how to fix them. So just like we talked about, Freud's what's wrong with you and how can we fix it? Maslow is, you can be anything you want to be. How can we help you get there? So two totally different ways to think about things. He developed the hierarchy of needs, which many of you have probably heard of or seen before. So what he proposed is that we all have these different needs, And these needs at the bottom of the pyramid here, if they are not being met, then the rest of the stuff at the top really doesn't matter. We just don't have the bandwidth to be consumed with them or concerned about them. So, in other words, if I can't eat or drink or sleep, then I'm not going to be too worried about my self-esteem. I'm going to be worried about getting some food, right? So if I take care of those things, then I start worrying about my safety, am I secure? This is where we start to get into some kind of business-related things. Is my job secure? Am I able to provide for my family? Those kind of things. Is my health good? Am I able to maintain my health? Those sorts of things. And if I take care of that, then I'm focusing more and more of my attention on friendship and family and intimacy, love and belonging to groups and things like that. And then if I take good care of those things, then I start focusing on, my self-esteem. Do I have the respect of others? Do I have respect for myself? Do I have confidence? And then once I've gotten there, that's when I begin to really be empowered to, be unleashed, so to speak, creatively, morally, mentally, in terms of problem solving, in terms of learning new things that may not be natural to me or part of my direct experience. And so this is, in Maslow's way of looking at things, this is where Einstein lived, and a few, a select few others, great philosophers, great writers, great leaders that were so accomplished at taking care of the basics that their mental energy went into these more higher value things. So I'm not a student or a philosopher, so I'm probably not doing a great job of explaining this, but it's definitely worth reading about and learning more about, because it really helps you to think about your own communication with people, whether it be in your job as a salesperson or with family members, friends, whatever. But it also helps you when you're engaging with customers. Where are they? And can you gear your communication with them so that it's addressing what they're most looking for at that moment? And, we'll move around in this pyramid from time to time, right? So our goal is to connect with customers. And rather than just finding their problem and solving it, what we can do is we can build relationships of trust and relationships that last, and then inspire them to action. So one of the actions we may want to inspire is to purchase our product or service, right? But we want to inspire them. In other words, rather than let me find your pain and let me remind you how much it's hurting you and sort of put you in a painful place, and then say, here, I can make that go away with my product or service. What if we help them see that our product or service is going to lift them to a higher place in their lives? That's a different way of communicating with customers, and it's certainly a lot more inspiring. And my contention would be that when we go back to the stress and the worry and the treadmill nature of being a salesperson, when that's your job, to inspire people, it doesn't feel like a treadmill anymore. So in order to do that, what we have to do is we have to stop manipulating our customers and start caring about them. That's a tall order, right? Instead of, walking in with a preset list of questions that I'm going to ask you that are in some way, shape, or form designed to sort of logically trap you into agreeing that my customers, or I'm sorry, my solution is going to help you. I'm going to show up more with a blank slate and really try to let you guide my questioning. I'm going to put you first and ask the questions, ask more, let's say just more broad questions about how I can help you, not just how can my product help you. Because there's opportunities there to build relationships that we miss so often. Somebody may have just had a really bad drive-in. They may have had a fight with their spouse. They may have had something go wrong taking the kids to school. They may be very upset about that. But, you know, we all sort of hide that type of thing from each other at work. And if we're open to it, we'll pick up on the signs and know. And if we ask questions and are able to empathize with our customer about those types of things, boy, the bond that's formed is extremely powerful and long-lasting. But you can't come in with a preset plan and have that happen. Whoop, there we go. So we're still following a pretty similar pattern to the traditional consultative selling. We're asking a lot of questions. Like I said, they may be a little broader, not quite as focused on, you know, the specific areas that our product or service address. We're doing a lot of listening. We are finding pain. That is still an important part of the process, because our job is to solve problems with our product or service, right? Nobody's going to spend money for something they don't need or want. But then what do we do? That, to me, is where, by making a few relatively simple adjustments in your approach, you can change everything. What we do typically is we ask a few questions. You know, if I sell printing services, you know, I would ask questions like, you know, do you do direct mail? Do your salespeople hand out brochures? Do you do trade shows? And as soon as you answer yes to one of those questions, what am I going to do? I'm going to start telling you all about my solution, right? I'm going to say, great, well, we have this wonderful offering where we create brochures that you can use in sales presentations, and this threefold super cool thing that you can use at the trade show, and blah, 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 right? So that may work, and it does. It works some of the time, right? But what we're doing is we've shown up, we've spent all the effort and work that it takes, and all the stress. This is where we really invest a lot of energy ourselves, is getting to that meeting, right? Getting that conversation started. And then as soon as it starts and the customer begins to share some information with us, as soon as we hear one little thing that we like, that we want to hear, we take over the conversation again and stop listening. That's our first mistake. So I thought this was kind of a funny picture. This guy's got this huge beard, and it says, "Excuse me, miss, my eyes are up here." If we show up in a sales meeting and we behave as I just described, it's no different than, you know, in a dating situation, a guy that won't take his eyes off the lady's appearance, her body, her everything below her chin. It's no different than a girl who doesn't want to do anything other than ask you things like, what kind of car do you drive and what kind of house do you have and things like that. They have their eyes on the prize, what they want, right, out of you. When you show up in a sales meeting and you ask a few pain questions and then immediately start solving their problem, all you're doing is showing the customer that you're really just there for yourself. You're not there for them. That's not much of a relationship. So one of the challenges that we run into is that just getting them to share is so difficult. And one of the reasons is that they've had this experience with so many salespeople, right? We've all had this experience as salespeople who have been trained to question for pain and build relationships with customers. When you're sold to by, whether you're buying a new car or a new house or something else, you notice the technique, right? And you probably, being a salesperson, are sometimes tougher to sell to because you know what they're up to, and you're probably a little more jaded. So just think about it from your own perspective. It's tough for that salesperson to really earn your trust. You're probably not paying a lot of attention. We're all super distracted. Or maybe you just don't have the ability to do anything about the problem right now. They may find your pain and they may have a great solution, but you can't afford it right now. Or, maybe you're not the final decision maker. There's 3 other people in the organization that need to be involved, and one's on an extended vacation, the other one is in the midst of a huge project, and the other one's just not interested. So there's just no way you're going to get that decision made right now. So at that point, you're kind of shutting down, right? You're not really going to share a lot with the salesperson because you don't see it going anywhere. And again, if you haven't already built some trust, then it's very difficult to get people to share anything with you, even very basic business facts and technical facts. So one of the first things that we want to do to change all of this is we want to let them know that we appreciate them right up front. I mentioned the Sales Scripter earlier. Sales Scripter does a great job in the scripts that it produces of setting up a conversation with a customer where you're constantly pausing and asking for permission to move to the next step. It works. There's a reason that Sales Scripter emphasizes that approach. It works. You're letting the prospect know that their time is valuable, that you recognize that, and more importantly, that their openness with you, their sharing of what sometimes can be intimate details, is appreciated by you. You recognize that they don't have to do this and that they're giving you a favor by doing this. And a great way to do it is to ask for permission. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about that? Sometimes it seems like a superfluous question, like it's implied that they want you to ask those questions, right? They're waiting for you to ask, but you still should ask, because that question says to them, you're in control here, Mr. Customer. I respect your time and attention, and I just want to make sure that you're okay with the next step. Do you have 10 minutes to discuss your printing needs? Same thing. You're just letting them know that you're going to need 10 minutes. You're being courteous and giving them an upfront expectation of how long. A lot of times when you do that, the customer is pleasantly surprised because they're thinking they're about to get into a 30-minute discussion. Would it be okay with you if we talk about fill in the blank? Certainly, as you start to get a little more personal, those kind of questions become even more powerful. But the point here is to use these kind of questions right at the beginning of the conversation. They're not statements. Something I'm guilty of all the time, showing up and saying, hey, thanks for your time. I appreciate your time. Things like that. That's not the same thing. I have to remind myself to ask the question, do you mind if I take 5 minutes of your time to ask you a few questions? It changes everything. It's a statement of respect. Then what we want to do is we want to validate them. I have to be careful here not to get too carried away with this topic because I could say a lot about it, but it's very, very powerful. The definition I found in the dictionary of validate is to give confirmation, approval. What we want to do is we want to let them know that their thoughts and feelings have value. Because guess what? You may not think this. It may seem like pretty basic stuff that they're telling you, but they may never have told anyone else. And when that's the case, it's a big deal to them. And if you let them know that you appreciate what they're saying to you, man, it feels great to them. And the way that it builds the relationship of trust between you and the customer is super powerful. So you say things like, thank you for sharing. Very simple statement, but often overlooked. And then, when they're bringing up their pains, they're bringing up problems that have occurred recently, that kind of thing. Empathize. That must be really frustrating for you. That must have been really tough. That was really brave. That was really smart. That was a great idea. If they say to you, what I'm looking for is a printer that can do this, 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 and this, and those things are all right in your wheelhouse, how do you respond? Most of us, unfortunately, get excited and we say, great, because we can do this, 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 and this, right? If all we do is pause and say, wow, that's a great idea. I can see how that would really change your business or really improve this problem or really save you money or time or whatever. That's the key step here. We're validating what they've said. It's not about us. It's about them. They've just shared something with us. Let's tell them why we think that's valuable. The last line there is really the most powerful question or statement. What I like most about that idea is no matter what they say, even if it's they've suggested something that you just can't do, to tell them to find something good in what they've told you and say that is extremely powerful. You're saying to the customer, you as a person have value to me. Whether or not we're going to do business, you as a person and your ideas have value to me. Again, I'm going to try not to get too deep into this, but people's ideas are very important to them, especially in business. Professional people, people that are highly educated, highly motivated, highly paid, their ideas are really important to them. There's a lot of ego, self-esteem behind every idea. And if you just say, I like that idea, that's a big deal to them. And believe it or not, they probably don't hear it very often. Now, so we've done this, right? We've asked for permission up front. We've validated what they've told us. Now what? We keep asking questions. We don't switch into me mode. We go personal. Even in a business situation where you're selling, technology products that are designed to make you more efficient and more productive and save you money and things like that, if you can get personal, it will change everything. You can sometimes even frame your questions that aren't really about their personal life as a personal question. What you're doing is increasing the intimacy of the relationship. May I ask you a personal question? Did it seem like that worked? They've just told you, what we've been trying to do about this problem is blah, blah, blah. First, validate. Wow, that was a really smart idea. What I like most about that idea is, and then, can I ask you a personal question? How did you really feel that worked? Man, then they're going to tell you, well, I really didn't like it because, the vendor we were working with, just the support was terrible, or they hit us with all these extra charges, or then you're going to hear the stuff you really want to know. Do you mind if we go a little deeper into that? Again, we're asking for permission, and we're steering the conversation into, let's keep focused on you, the customer, and you sharing with me. The reason we're doing this is because we have gotten to a sacred place with that customer. Believe it or not, very few people let anyone get this close to them. So when you do, your relationship with that customer has changed in an incredible way. You want to stay here as long as you possibly can because it's a magical place. They have let you behind their walls, right? Just be with them. Just listen to them. They're vulnerable, and they have you next to them. What does that say? They're learning to trust you. What you have to do is you have to recognize that gift by being very patient and listening to everything they have to say and not jumping into your world by solving their problem. Thank you for sharing is a very powerful phrase. When things subside, there's a lull in the conversation, don't immediately shift into, let me tell you how I'm going to fix your problem. Just calmly say, thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you want to tell me about that? Give them the last opportunity. When you're sure they don't have anything else to say, that's when it's time to shift gears. But be careful. Anybody that's ever been in a relationship knows that there is always one partner that wants to be heard and one partner that wants to fix problems. And when you're the partner that wants to be heard, what does it feel like when the other partner wants to fix your problems? Doesn't feel good. Don't do that to your customer. You could throw away all of the relationship equity that you've just built by doing that. You've taken them to a very sensitive place. Again, they may not go here with anyone else. So be super careful. What we want to do is we just want to ask for permission again. Thank you for sharing that with me. Do you mind if I share a story with you? And then you might share a personal story or a story about a customer. Would you be interested in hearing about how I think we might be able to help you? Again, really simple questions, and the answer is almost always yes, sure, please. But if you don't ask it, the effect is not the same. If you ask the question, you're saying, I respect that you've shared this with me, and I value your time, and this is about you. It's not about me. I think I might be able to help, but I only want to do that if you're ready for me to help. That's the key. Now, what if they do say, no, I really don't want to hear your story? They put the big pause button on the conversation. Well, that's okay, but you've got to walk the walk here. If you've asked them the question, then you have to be prepared to walk away. And I don't literally mean get up and walk and, sulk out of the room. What I mean is in the conversation in a constructive way. We want to reinforce that you care and you want to help. But recognize that they're just not ready, and that's okay, because that's going to happen. I really want to help, whatever that means to you. What can I do next? How could I best help? Should we talk more about your situation? So let's go back to talking about you then. Can I suggest some reading or videos or whatever sort of resources you have to help them learn more about the problem? A lot of times that's where people are. You've asked them questions. You've taken them to this place that they never go with anyone else. They haven't shared this stuff with anybody. And it's opened up a whole lot of thoughts in their mind. And they're just sitting there across the table from you trying to process it all. They're just not ready to move to the next step. They got to sort it out in their own mind first. You've opened a can of worms. So have some resources that they could take and watch a video, read something. Maybe there's a book that you can hand them that will let them sort it out and kind of show them a way forward. Or just ask them, do you just need some time to digest what we've talked about? If the answer is yes, that is not a bad thing, that they've said, no, I don't want to hear about your solution, and yes, I need some time to digest. What it means is you've done your job, and you've brought them as far as they can go at that moment. You just got to give them a little time and come back. So when you truly have the interests of others in mind, when your intention is to truly serve them, to be there for them and help them, you'll be inspired. All of this will come naturally. You don't need to have a script of questions to ask when you're sort of deep down into that personal stuff. That's going to come to you. You'll feel relaxed and comfortable in these conversations. It won't be rushed. You won't be struggling to remember what to say. Your customers will be comfortable, and you'll feel that. And guess what? It won't feel like work. You're going to leave these kind of meetings feeling uplifted, feeling like you can conquer the world, because you've just given somebody a tremendous gift. So how will you know it's working? You'll see it in their eyes. You'll see the way they look at you. You're going to notice that they're not trying to end the meeting. They're not like they normally do. Okay, well, look, I got a meeting. You'll see the opposite. They'll tell you maybe at the beginning of the meeting, look, I got 30 minutes, okay? Can we do this in 30 minutes? Sure, I'll take whatever time you can give me. And then at the end of 30 minutes, you're going, okay, well, do you have to get to that meeting? No, let's keep talking about this. You'll feel that they're being honest with you. You know when they're not being honest with you, and you're going to know that they're being honest with you. And you'll know what to do next. If you're not feeling those things, then ask yourself, did I validate what they shared with me? And if the answer is no, or I'm not sure, then let's try to do something different next time. The most important part of this is that you will not be worried anymore. You will feel relaxed and confident. You will know that you are being the best you that you can be, that you are doing your job to the utmost. You won't be worried about rushing back and making whatever number of calls you need to make. You'll still need to make those calls, but you'll feel much better about doing it. It won't be a burden. And that will change everything, not just at work, but at home as well. Now, if you want to learn more about this approach to selling, I highly recommend The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. So go to ogmandino.com, and you'll see there's a bookstore there, and you can purchase that book. It's a really short read. It's not what you will be expecting at all. I highly recommend it. It's a great book that really gets to the principles that I've just begun to touch on today. And if you're really interested, take the assessment that's on the same site. You can go to ogmandino.com/coach/Craig and take an assessment. And once you've completed it, it doesn't take long. It'll only take you 10 or 15 minutes. You'll get all these results back, and then just access to a host of videos and audio recordings that explain the results that you see and give you some exercise to practice on some of the things. Just a whole lot of learning and experience to have there. So definitely check all of that out. And with that said, I'll wrap it up here and turn it back over to Michael to tell us what to do next.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Great job. And I just want to add one thing onto that, Craig. I mean, you mentioned that Og Mandino book and assessment. You aren't formally affiliated with that organization. You're actually a consumer of that product. So I just want to make sure it's not that you're pitching some product of your own there. That's more of an endorsement.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I've been a beneficiary of what I've learned there, and just want to share it.
Yeah, really good stuff. I actually, Craig, I don't have access to any of the questions with how I set up this webinar. Do you see any questions in there that are worth? We're at the top of the hour. I don't know if you see anything there that you want to go through, or we'll just wrap it up unless there's anything pressing on the question.
It doesn't look like it. In fact, we neglected to even point that out at the beginning, so that was our bad. Doesn't look like anybody even knew that the questions were there.
All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody for spending your hour with us. We hope that it was a good return on investment of your time. Please join us on the next webinar if it fits your needs. Everything you've learned about generating leads and growing your business is wrong, presented by Walter Wise, founder and CEO of BPI Strategy Group. That's going to be on September 17th. So good luck, happy selling, and we look forward to seeing you on the 17th. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, and hey, real quick, just for everybody's benefit, you'll get an email tomorrow with links to the recording of today's webinar and to register for the next webinar. So look for that email here in 24 hours. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.